I've talked to man, I couldn't even tell you. It's got to be roughly 40 to 50 people, and these are credible sources of that have all told me the same thing, and they've all told me this is going to be the new head coach of Alabama. And granted, let me throw in there, as to when I'm making this video, it hasn't been announced just quite yet, but I'm 98% sure it's going to be announced soon. What do y'all think about that? Nick Saban throwing some hints at us that we didn't even know about. We're not doing no intro, none of that. I don't got time to waste. You don't got time to waste either. You know what we're about to get into and what we're about to talk about. The biggest thing that has happened in college football, and arguably the past, I'd say, ever since he got there, so 16, 17 years, Nick Saban is just retired. We've talked plenty about it, and I'm sure you've heard other people talk plenty about it. Yes, it's more than safe to say it's some devastating news. And I'm not just saying that for Alabama football. I mean in college football in general. We, and when I say we, I'm referring to the entire college football community here, we're losing a legend. And I don't care if you hated Nick Saban or you love this guy. Guess what? He made college football 10 times more entertaining. And that was the main reason everybody watched Alabama in the first place, to hate watch them. 90% of the people that tuned in Alabama games were rooting against them. And you know I'm right. You sitting here watching this, you're probably shaking your head like, yeah, I did watch Alabama a lot just to root against them. Exactly my point. It just became a commodity that Nick Saban Alabama was the best, so it was easy to root against them. But not only root against them, yet again, let me throw this in there. You wanted to watch the games because you wanted to see how Nick Saban's team's doing. And I could sit up here and talk about that all day long, but we're not here to talk about Nick Saban so much. We're here to talk about the developing story that's currently going on with this new head coach. Of course, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out whenever Nick Saban was going to retire, there's going to be a million rumors swirling around, and that's exactly what's going on and happening currently. You got everybody and their mama talking about, oh, this head coach is going to replace him, this head coach, and I've seen 15 different names brought up. Some of the people that get brought up, they're beyond laughable, but some of the others, I'm like, okay, yeah, I could see that. It makes a ton of sense. And I'm going to give you guys in this video my immediate front runners for this job and also my personal favorites and personal choices here. I'm going to throw this out there because I've loved this guy. I've stated I would like for him to take over after Nick Saban. Lane Kiffin. I've always had a soft spot for Kiffin. I think he's an offensive mastermind. Is he a goofy goober at times? Is he a cornball? Yes, but he's still a great head coach, or a good head coach. He is a little lackadaisical, and maybe some Alabama fans don't think he's serious enough, but I wouldn't mind him getting the job. I wouldn't mind Kiffin getting the job whatsoever, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I'd say there's probably a 0.001% chance that happen at this point in time. He is very content at Ole Miss, and I don't blame him. I wouldn't leave, and I wouldn't even want to go to Alabama. Not that Alabama has offered him the job, but if I was in his shoes, why would I go to Bama where the standard is to win a championship when I can stay at Ole Miss, and as long as I go 10-2, everybody's going to be happy? Just doesn't make too much sense there. Another head coach, and this is the immediate one I thought of, Kirby Smart. Now, here's the thing with Kirby Smart. Let's keep this short and simple. Does Alabama want Kirby Smart? Yeah, but is Kirby Smart going to leave Georgia? Heck to the no. He's not leaving Georgia. That's just clear-cut and obvious. I'm sure maybe Alabama might have made a phone call, but it got shut down quickly. Kirby Smart's not going to leave Georgia just due to the fact that Georgia is just as good as a job as Alabama, and Kirby Smart has already won 2 championships there. He's building his own dynasty. The last thing Kirby wants is to be in Nick Saban's shadow yet again. He wants to create his own dynasty, and I respect that. The Kirby Smart one will not be happening. I think we all know that, but I did want to throw that in there. That was one of my immediate frontrunners, or not frontrunners, but immediate favorites. There we go. Another guy that came to my mind is no other than Steve Sarkisian. Remember, he was at Alabama only a couple years ago. I think that's a similar situation to Kirby Smart, though. Although he hasn't won championships like Kirby Smart, he's content there, and he wants to build his own dynasty, build his own brand. Steve Sarkisian at Texas, it seems like a great fit, and also the standards are still somewhat slightly lower than Alabama. Just wouldn't make too much sense, no matter how you look at it, for Sarkisian to leave Texas and go to Alabama. At that point in time in his shoes, I think you're taking a risk. The fan base at Alabama would be quick to turn on Sarkisian if things went south, whereas if we got Kirby Smart, that would never happen. I've talked to man, I couldn't even tell you. It's got to be roughly 40 to 50 people, and these are credible sources of that have all told me the same thing, and they've all told me this is going to be the new head coach of Alabama. Now, whether you want to believe this information or not, hey, that's up to you. I'm just the messenger. This isn't coming from me. This is coming from my sources. Do what you want with this information. That's all I'm going to say. But getting back on track here, I've been told that it is all but a done deal that Dan Lanning, the head coach of Oregon currently, he's going to be the new Alabama head coach. When will this be announced? Don't know. I've heard anywhere from the next 12 hours to the next 36, 48 hours. Not too sure when exactly we're going to get an announcement, and I'm sure they're working out some details in the contract. But the notion going around right now is that, yeah, we got our guy. It's Dan Lanning. I do also want to address this because it's a very controversial thing currently on Twitter right now. Apparently, some news, I think it was whatchamacallit, not a news anchor, but well, the news anchor said it, but a news station, there we go, a news station report on this on Eugene, Oregon. They stated, and this isn't in Tuscaloosa, this is in Eugene, Oregon, that Dan Lanning was currently in Tuscaloosa. That was making its rounds on Twitter, and that started up this huge rumor and this huge speculation that Dan Lanning is already currently in T-Town. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, that's not true, and even some Oregon players have tweeted out laugh-a-face emojis basically mocking it, saying, yeah, there's no way he's in Tuscaloosa. And that's really besides the point, and it doesn't matter what you believe there, because whether he's in T-Town tonight, it doesn't amount to a hill of beans, and it doesn't matter. It has zero significance. Because here's the thing to all the people saying, no, that's not true, he's not in T-Town tonight. Well, if he's not in T-Town tonight, okay, I'll give you that. He'll be there tomorrow morning or sometime tomorrow. And here's something for your train of thought. Nick Saban and Greg Byrne, the athletic director at Alabama, they've already picked the new head coach. They know. This isn't a job hunt or a job search. No. They got their guy. And if some of you are wondering, well, Matt, why Dan Lanning? Take a look at this. Here's something for your train of thought. Here's what Nick Saban has to say about Dan Lanning this past season. What I've always tried to do is have a bunch of young people, evaluate them, see them go get other jobs, and know that you would hire them back because you know who they are. Now, one of the disadvantages of having all these guys going out and getting jobs everywhere is they hire the guys before I get a chance to, like Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning was here as a GA. He went to Memphis, got a job. I was ready to hire him, and 2 days before I hired him, Kirby hired him. What do y'all think about that? Nick Saban throwing some hints at us that we didn't even know about. Or at the time, we didn't know about or know to think about. That's a better way of putting it. Nick Saban, allegedly, according to himself, so not even allegedly, he was going to do this. He was going to hire Dan Lanning before Kirby did. So yeah, I think it's more than safe to say that Nick Saban was fond of Dan Lanning. If that's not enough for you, check out what Greg Byrne, the athletic director, tweeted out only a few hours ago. As with any coaching search, our goal is to be thorough and expedient. Did I say that right? Expedient? Expedient? I've never seen that word in my life, but let's continue along here. Our ideal candidate will be strong in recruiting, wink wink, Dan Lanning, and relationship building, wink wink, Dan Lanning, player development, wink wink, Dan Lanning, and excel in X's and O's and have the overall ability to lead this historic program. Is that Dan Lanning? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Continuing along here after program, there will be plenty of rumors out there during this process. Next time I talk publicly, ooh, what about that? Getting a little juicy here, will be to announce our new coach. If you don't hear from me, don't believe it. So in other terms, he's saying, hey, if you hear from Matt B. Gray, don't believe it. If it don't come from me, myself, and I, Greg Byrne, the man, the myth, the legend himself, it ain't real. Don't believe it. The one thing about all of this, the rest of this is just, AD talk. But here is the part of this that stuck out to me. Our ideal candidate will be strong in recruiting. It's more than safe to say, and I'm very confident in saying this with the sources I have that have fed me this information, we found our guy and we know who it is. The rest of the public doesn't know who it is, but we know. We know, and I'll leave it at that. And the beauty of this is, if you're a part of our community, or hey, maybe you're not a part of our community, you're just randomly watching this video, you have found out before everybody else. So consider subscribing to the channel if you want more information like this before it gets released to ESPN and all these other social media outlets. And I want to give a major shout out to all my sources because they've been 99% right over the past couple of years, and I almost automatically assume they're going to be right on this. Now, as far as it goes for Mr. Dan Lanning himself, I know some of you are curious. Some of you are probably asking, well, Matt, how do you feel about Dan Lanning? What do you think about this? And granted, let me throw in there, as to when I'm making this video, it hasn't been announced just quite yet, but I'm 98% sure it's going to be announced soon. Me, myself, I like it. I think it's a pretty good hire. If I had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. If you want me to grade it too, I'll do that. I'd give it a B+, A-. I like it. I don't love it like I like hearing about Nick Saban coming to Alabama when he did in 2007. No. I don't love it like that, but I like it. I'm a fan of it. I'll put it to you like this. Out of all the head coaches out there that we could go after, this was the top one for me outside of Lane Kiffin. I got Kiffin and Dan Lanning currently 1A, 1B, and you got to keep into account that we weren't going to get Sarkisian and Kirby Smart. Those were just off the table. I think Dan Lanning's a pretty good head coach. It's hard to evaluate him as a head coach because he hasn't been one for long. So I'll just give him pretty good for now, but I'll put it to you like this. I ain't worried because Saban handpicked the next guy, and if he likes Dan Lanning, then I like Dan Lanning. Same thing with the quarterback battles over the many years. If Saban likes Jalen Milroe, then I like Jalen Milroe. I trust Nick Saban, so whoever it was going to be, I was going to be happy with it. And Dan Lanning, he's got my full support. We'll talk more about this in the up and coming, not just days, but hours, so stay tuned. Anytime there's an update, you might as well come back to the channel. We're going to be talking about it. And also, let me throw this in there, because I've seen a bunch of Oregon fans on Twitter talking about, oh, Dan Lanning would never leave us. He said he's happy here. Oh, man. All I can do is laugh about that. You really think Dan Lanning wouldn't leave Oregon for Alabama? Come on, man. Y'all must have forgot. We are talking about Alabama. This is the greatest college football program of all time. And you don't think he'd leave Oregon for Alabama? I can't even laugh at it. It's sad if you actually believe that. And it's not to say that he doesn't like it at Oregon. I'm sure he likes it, but this is just better. Better recruiting, better team, better everything. And I feel bad for Oregon fans because y'all are left out to dry. That's a different conversation for a different day, but it is what it is. You're talking about Alabama. They get to handpick who they want. It is what it is. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts down below about that.